not a cause of primary hypothyroidism. So let us understand this terminology, right? Primary, secondary, tertiary. Okay. Now, when it comes to the thyroid gland function, right? So we know that thyroid gland is present in your neck, right? It is a bilobed structure. Okay. That produces two important hormones, that is T3 and T4. Okay. And these T3 and T4 are mainly concerned with the regulation of the metabolic rate. Now, this has to be controlled. So the control comes from your anterior pituitary gland, right? So anterior pituitary gland produces a hormone called as TSH, which will stimulate the thyroid gland positively to produce more T3 and T4. Okay. Now this anterior pituitary gland is also under the control of the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus produces a hormone called as TRH, which stimulates the anterior pituitary gland to produce more TSH. So like we have two levels of control, right? One is at the level of hypothalamus, and the second control is from the anterior pituitary gland, and thyroid gland is the effector organ or the end organ here. Okay. Now, if the gland which is supposed to produce a hormone doesn't produce it because of its own inability, we will call it as primary, right? So whenever you hear the word primary, it means the gland itself is dysfunctional. So here we are talking about primary hypothyroidism. So to call it as primary hypothyroidism, the thyroid gland itself should be dysfunctional, right? That is where you call it as primary. Now, if its next level control is abnormal, right? Anterior pituitary, there is a problem, and TSH is not produced in sufficient quantities, and that has caused hypothyroidism, we will call it as secondary. And if it's next level, that is hypothalamus, if that is abnormal, we will call it as tertiary, right? So here the question is asking not a cause of primary. Okay. Congenital hypothyroidism, iodine deficiency, right? In congenital hypothyroidism, there are issues with the thyroid gland development, and that is why thyroid gland is not able to produce. So the problem is in the thyroid gland. So it is a primary. Okay. Iodine deficiency, iodine is required for the synthesis of thyroid hormone. Iodine deficiency, thyroid hormone synthesis is not happening from the thyroid gland, irrespective of how much TSH is coming from the pituitary gland. So that is also primary. Okay. Sheehan syndrome, right? What is Sheehan syndrome? It is the postpartum or peripartum pituitary apoplexy, right? Either cut off of the blood supply to the pituitary gland suddenly or hemorrhage into the pituitary gland. Most likely hemorrhage is what happens in Sheehan syndrome in the peripartum or immediate postpartum period. And because of that, right, there is sudden decrease in the production of hormones from the anterior pituitary gland. So even the TSH production can be decreased, and that can cause hypothyroidism. Patient will present with clinical features quite late because whatever already stored a thyroid hormone is there, it will be released for some time, but eventually patient will start developing symptoms of hypothyroidism, right? Can I call it as primary? No. In Sheehan syndrome, the problem is in the pituitary gland, right? It is in the anterior pituitary gland. So when the problem is in the pituitary gland, it has to be secondary, right? Hashimoto's thyroiditis, right? Lymphocytic inflammation of the thyroid gland itself. So the problem is in the thyroid gland itself. So that is also primary, right? So Sheehan syndrome is the condition where you have secondary hypothyroidism, making it the correct answer for our question, right? So that's it from me here, guys. Thank you.